I've been following the farmer thing happening, the strikes happening across the EU. I find it very sad that the EU decided to make yet another concession to the farmers. Let me tell you something, farmers, okay? Then I'm just some random dick on the internet. I'm not the hero growing all of our food, so you don't have to listen to me. But one way or the other, you're going to have to adapt. Whether that means today lowering your emissions and being a little bit more environmentally friendly, or in 50 years having no arable land whatsoever to grow on. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to adapt. So as long as you're going to have to change and adapt, why not be a part of the long-term solution that works for everybody? Not just for you and your livelihood, but also for the people who come after you. The people that you might be wanting to leave your farm to. I hate to break this to you, but if they don't have land to farm on, it's pretty much pointless. You may as well just set the farm on fire and then amble towards your grave, because it will be completely pointless to leave your farm to somebody who is dealing with unprecedented droughts, wildfires, floods, extreme weather events that get worse and worse and are more and more protracted over long periods of time. I mean, science not only knows the harmful effects of all those pesticides that you and the right wing are so adamant to defend, but they also know what's happening with climate change. It's already happening. And you're going to have to adapt one way or the other. There's no way around it. But it's this stubbornness and it's this backing from the right wing. Well, of course, the right wing has always been in favor of agriculture, but another thing you might want to be wary of is that these right-wingers, while they care about you now, they're not going to give a fuck about you later, especially once they get more and more power in the EU, which they will. They absolutely will. I'm predicting it right now. They're going to sweep, and if they don't take a whole lot of power in the next 5 to 10 years, more than they already have, I will set up a booth in Helsinki City Square, and you can come by one and kick me in the nuts repeatedly. Repeatedly. That's how sure I am of this. These people, they care about you now because they got elections coming up. They are not going to give a single flying fuck about you, especially when they're nationalizing agriculture. They will drop you like a bad fucking habit, and you're just going to be so unaware of it, won't you? You're going to be sitting there like, oh my God. It is capitalism that has made agriculture such a shit show in the first place. Monsanto, anybody? It's capitalism that continues to push the policies that makes farming harder and harder. So while it may be advantageous for you in the short term to go out there and fight for your livelihood, all I see is somebody who just doesn't fucking get it. I just see somebody who is being lied to. Like so many other people on this planet, you're being lied to by politicians who think that, or who are telling you that they have your best interests in mind. There is historical precedent for this, for right-wingers to get behind a certain sector of society just to dump them once they get elected. They do it all the fucking time. But at least with immigrants, they don't even pretend to care about them. They just dump them immediately. Immediately. You're going to have to change. That's the point I want to drive home. That's why I'm saying it so many times. You have to adapt one way or the other. Whether that's now with these policies to try to make things more sustainable so that you can have a longer livelihood and your family can have a longer livelihood as time goes on and on. Or whether that's later when you're pulling up soggy leaves out of a drowned field and maybe at that point wondering, gee, why didn't I try to make more of a compromise 50 years ago? That's the focal point. Like that's where everybody ideally would agree, right? When farmers and the EU, when they get into these tussles, ideally they would start from the same focal point, which is climate change is actually happening. The planet is getting warmer. Storms are getting more intense. Droughts are becoming more intense. Sea levels are rising. These things are happening before our very eyes. Because you choose to close your eyes to them does not mean that they do not exist. These things are real and they're happening, and that is exactly where we should start. So, where do we go from there? We find ways to modernize and retrofit your farming so that maybe you can still make that livelihood that you're talking about. Our livelihoods, our livelihoods. Yes, you can sustainably farm and still make money. It's possible. It's absolutely possible. But if that is one sacrifice that has to be made, that you might make a little bit less money. Actually, now that I think about it, you're already making less money because of right-wing capitalist dickheads. You're already not making the money that you could be making. You're already not being paid what you're worth. Like, what has happened? What the Oh my god. You guys are being so duped, and I feel so bad for you. Out there on your tractors, burning tires and screaming about your livelihood. You're just being so duped. You're already like it's not the EU that's stripping your livelihood away. It's capitalism. It's capitalism that's making your crops less profitable. You know, it's man-made inflation that's biting you in the ass. It's conglomerates like Monsanto biting you in the ass, and the left wing are the ones that are trying to fight these pricks, and you're just ignoring them because we're just a bunch of highfalutin city slickers with degrees, and we're no fucking smarter than you. We're reading different material than you are. The truth. And you choose to ignore the truth, and we're all going to have to pay for it. All because of your livelihood. The point where everybody should sit down and focus on and agree is that this stuff is real. It is as bad as they say it is. And by they, I mean the scientists and the people who do the facts. You know, they do the things with the facts and the true things, you know. And then we start to adapt from that point. Everybody, every single one of us, we adapt. Every sector of society, every industry, everything, we adapt. Because that's all we can do. And because, like I said, you're going to have to change one way or the other. It's inevitable. So, don't know. I could say a whole hell of a lot more, but that's the main point I wanted to drive home in this video, is that all these farmers out there, like, their frustration can be understood. They're afraid. You know, fear is what, you know, a lot of politicians on both sides of the spectrum, of course, that they manipulate that fear. But when the right wing manipulates that fear, they're usually doing so from a position of bad faith without facts whatsoever. And the fact is that your livelihood is more at risk because of them than because of the left. Your livelihood is more at risk because of politicians upholding capitalism than because of politicians who just want this planet to be livable for another 100 years. Or maybe even longer than that. Maybe. I don't know. Everyone's just being lied to. We're all just being lied to, and everyone's telling a different lie. It's fucking frustrating. Have a good day, folks. Try to.